We're going to be talking about the 6 ways that I sabotaged my own hair growth for years. For 25 years, I blamed my genetics for my short, fragile hair, when in reality, I was unknowingly destroying it with the very things I believed were helping it grow. From soaking my curls in conditioner to clinging to popular curly hair rules, I was doing everything right. But I was actually sabotaging my own hair big time. My own experience at that time really did seem to point to the idea that I was just genetically fated to always have short, fragile hair.
Working me down and...
I didn't know of any family members with longer than average hair, and certainly had no family members who shared my hair texture and had very long hair. I also had the experience that as my hair would grow to what appeared to be its maximum length, which was much shorter than it is now, by the way, the ends would begin breaking, there were split ends galore, and I had wispy, crazy, uneven ends. I tried everything. Boatloads of very expensive products designed for my hair type, expensive curly hair specialized cuts, co-washing, hair masks, hot oil treatments, quitting shampoo. Nothing seemed to help. So what was I missing for so many years? It turned out to be the key to solving my hair growth mystery. So for the better part of my life, what I was missing was a roadmap of hair care principles to follow. And because I was lacking important guiding principles for my hair care, the different things I was trying were a really scattered picking and choosing of individual products and techniques, but without understanding the bigger picture. This caused me to lack an integrated game plan that could address the main components of hair care and hair growth. And it also meant that I was just continuing in my ignorance to use unhealthy hair care practices that were seriously damaging my hair. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the 6 ways I was sabotaging my own hair growth for years. Wet detangling. If you know anything about modern day conventional curly hair care, you'll know that wet detangling is basically a religious tenet of how to care for curls properly. But through my investigation into historical hair care, which has proven to be a game changer for me, I found that not only was wet detangling not commonly done in history, it probably wasn't even feasible for most people until very recently. Why? So firstly, they didn't have indoor plumbing and showers, of course. Secondly, they didn't have a massive market of commercially produced conditioners designed to provide slip while detangling wet in the shower. And yet, still, so many women in history, and yes, even curly-haired ones, were able to grow really long, thick hair. So, I was completely lacking historical continuity in my hair care. In other words, the ways I cared for my hair were more influenced by recent fads than by long-term tried and true techniques. Okay, but there was an even larger and more glaring issue. Though I was doing just what I was supposed to as a curly-haired woman, religiously wet detangling my hair in the shower for years upon years, lathering it with tons of conditioner and using a gentle, wide-tooth comb like is recommended, my hair still wasn't growing. Let me repeat that. My hair wasn't growing. At least not much. And we're talking over a several year period where I barely trimmed my hair. And when it did become somewhat longer, the ends were uneven and longer in some places than others. So at the time, I always chalked this up to all kinds of things other than what it actually was. My genetics, my hair just not being the type to be able to grow long, or that my hair mysteriously grew much faster in some areas of my head than in others. But none of these were actually the answer as to why my hair wasn't growing. Little did I know, the very thing I clung to most ferociously in my curly hair routine wet detangling in the shower, was the biggest enemy of my hair's ability to grow. Why? It's actually simple chemistry and physics. Hair strands on a molecular level are composed of various types of chemical bonds that hold the molecules together. One of these bonds is called a salt bond. And guess what? It dissolves in water. So this effectively means that when your hair strands are saturated in water, they become up to 50% weaker and more likely to break. And no matter how gentle you are when detangling, you are putting a relatively large amount of pressure on your hair strands, especially when using a brush or comb. And this means that they are 50% more likely to break off if you detangle when soaking wet as opposed to dry, especially breaking off near the ends. So when I finally internalized this understanding and came to terms with the fact that I would need to relearn how to detangle my hair, it all clicked into place. No wonder the areas of my hair that were the most curly and most tangle prone, like around my crown and this back part of my head, were also the shortest. They didn't grow more slowly, they were just experiencing the most amount of duress during my detangling and therefore breaking more often in the shower. So when I stopped wet detangling, my hair started growing fast, and more importantly, it started growing evenly. Okay, but there were still a lot of other issues that went along with this one. Constant use of conventional products. So the second way that I sabotaged my own hair growth for years was through a constant use and reliance upon conventional synthetic hair products. Not only were these products not doing anything health-wise for my hair or scalp to promote growth or prevent breakage, they were actually contributing to the problem. Conditioners that contained silicones were coating my hair strands and probably my scalp as well, preventing proper health and growth. Coating hair strands probably also makes breakage more likely, especially if this coating is building up and up over time, which in my case it certainly was. More on that in the next point. Furthermore, I was missing out on the many powerhouse natural ingredients and recipes that could have truly supported healing and homeostasis in my hair and scalp, not to mention promoting mega growth. By the way, there are tons of natural products that finally I did discover how to make for myself that made all the difference, including my own herbal hair growth oil blend. And now it's actually available for you to buy on my website. So if you'd like to check out my best-selling herbal hair growth oil and read the reviews, it's been helping tons of people already. The link is in the top line of the description. Okay, on to the next way I was sabotaging my own hair growth for years. Not properly cleansing my scalp. I was simply not cleansing my scalp often enough or properly. Okay, now I know if you have seen my other hair care content, this is going to sound really weird and like the opposite of what I've always been saying. I'm all about warning people about the dangers of shampoo, especially conventional shampoos, and too frequent washing of the hair. Let's back up and let me tell you a story. So when I first became really interested in growing my hair out and first began believing it was possible, YouTube was actually a really big part of my own journey. I watched countless of those top tips to grow your hair videos and took in so many people's hair growth stories on the internet. One of the most common tips in this kind of video, and now I myself am contributing to it with my videos, was wash your hair less often. And yes, this is still very true. Most people, especially in the West or North America specifically, wash their hair way too often and use harsh synthetic shampoos that strip away their natural oils. This is still very true. However, there is such a thing as the pendulum effect, and it applied for me in this case. So I realized shampoo was no good for me, at least on an intuitive level, from a pretty young age, which is why as soon as my mom turned over my hair care routine to me, probably around the age of 12, I completely ditched shampoo for good. And believe me, I haven't looked back. I'm not missing those mass-produced synthetic sulfate shampoos one little bit. However, I did have a dangerous combination going on in my routine. What was it? So while I did ditch my conventional shampoo, I certainly did not ditch my synthetic silicone-laden conditioner. In fact, I used it more heavily than ever. And this is something I have never shared here before on the internet, so don't laugh at my teenage self. I actually went through a phase of years where not only was I co-washing my hair with my silicone conditioner, but I actually wouldn't even rinse the conditioner out of my hair. This came from a real recognition that my hair needed more conditioning than it was getting from the 5 minutes of conditioner in my hair, but was absolutely not a healthy practice because it caused so much conditioner to build up on my hair strands and my scalp, suffocating hair growth, I'm sure. So the time I really began to realize this issue was around the time I chopped my hair off to chin length, which I've talked about in other videos. Suddenly, my hair was much shorter, and so I was able to use natural DIY shampoos or other cleansers without drying out my hair, since it was now so short. I started instantly noticing baby hairs sprouting all over the place, including beyond where I had believed my hairline naturally ended. So, in other words, there had been previously so much product buildup on my scalp that it was literally making my hairline recede. So long story short, cleansing the scalp is really important. But did I go back to using conventional shampoos? Definitely not. That would have just been out of the frying pan and into the fire. Instead, I found a variety of natural ways to cleanse my scalp, especially ones with historical continuity. I specifically stuck with the ones that didn't leave my dry hair feeling even more dry or my curls all frizzed out. A couple of my favorite cleansing methods during this period of scalp reset were clay washes, which I still use now 8 years later. And I also went through perhaps a year or so of making my own African black soap shampoo, and I really, really loved that one too. The clay has proven to be the stayer in my hair routine because it is just such a potent and nourishing hair treatment and a really effective cleanser that actually helps my curl definition instead of hindering it. So if you would like to learn more about clay washing, I will link a couple videos in the description that go more into detail about this, and I'll also be addressing it on my next video. So what was the next way I was sabotaging my own hair growth? No protective styling. If you have been around on my channel for any amount of time, you will know the importance of protective styles for growing long, luscious hair. In case you missed it, here's a quick recap. One of the biggest silent killers of long hair growth is not merely slow growth from your scalp, it's actually breakage from your ends. So most of us, if we're healthy, are always growing hair at a steady rate from our scalp. Therefore, the main reason we may not be seeing those length gains we want is due to breakage, which usually happens silently and insidiously over time. One of the best ways, and the ways used throughout history to prevent breakage, was protective styling. I'm using the term protective style to describe any type of hairstyle that keeps the fragile ends tucked away and protected from friction and the elements, while still being relatively gentle and balancing the weight of the hair over the scalp. If you'd like to learn more about protective styles, I have 2 very in-depth videos about them, both what they are and a demo of how to do several of my favorite styles that work for different hair lengths. Links for those are in the description. So all this to say, in my younger years, I was inadvertently sabotaging my own hair growth by virtually never having my hair in a true protective style. I would do a ponytail or a messy bun occasionally, or maybe a braid, but mostly I had bought hook, line, and sinker into the modern idea that those with long hair should be wearing it loose on most days, unless you were tired, sick, or having a bad hair day. So this mistake of never protective styling led right into the next way I was sabotaging my own hair growth: frequent washing and styling. I was sabotaging my hair through too frequent washing and styling. And yes, I know that I just said earlier that I wasn't cleansing my hair and scalp often enough, and that is true. So when I use the term too frequent washing here, I'm referring to co-washing. That is wetting my hair in the shower, applying lots of conditioner, combing it out, and then styling my hair with lots more products. Because I was already engaged in the damaging habit of detangling my hair in the shower, the fact that I was now also doing it fairly frequently throughout the week just multiplied the opportunities for damage. Also, every time I was co-washing and styling my hair, it was creating that much more of a burden of product buildup on my hair strands. Okay, so now let's get to the final way I was sabotaging my own hair growth, and this one is more subtle. Not believing my hair could grow, and not believing my hair was beautiful. This last point is more on the mental and emotional side of things, but believe me, if anything, this is actually the most important point. Why? Because everything we physically do or don't do for our hair, or our bodies for that matter, first comes from a foundational belief. Actions follow from thoughts and beliefs. And I had two majorly limiting beliefs about my hair. Number one, that it was simply not able to grow long. And number two, that it wasn't naturally beautiful. I didn't believe my hair could grow based on my genetics, my hair type, or you name it, but the end result was that I cared for my hair in a way that didn't support growth, and therefore I never saw growth happen, a self-fulfilling prophecy. When I say damaged, we're talking wispy, uneven ends where every strand ended in a split end practically. So instead of investigating what I was doing that could have been causing breakage and damage, instead I just mentally shrugged and said, well, my hair just won't grow past a certain length, so this makes sense. Do you see what an important shift our beliefs can cause? The second limiting belief was simply that my hair was not naturally beautiful. This insidious belief took different forms over the years. When I was younger, I genuinely disliked my curly hair texture because it was different than everyone else around me, and I wanted to fit in. I even went through a phase of straightening it every day to try to look like everyone else. But once I got to an age where I could appreciate my curls again, this negative belief took a more subtle twist. Sure, I had accepted that I have curls and curls can be very beautiful. However, I still believed that unless I used an enormous amount of styling products and techniques every time I co-washed my hair, my curls, I believed, would be frizzy, poofy, and undefined. And this too became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the products and techniques I was using on my hair to create a mask of health and curl definition were actually contributing to the problems in my hair. Dryness, frizziness, and lack of general definition of my curls. Changing my belief that my hair actually was naturally beautiful, and I simply needed to ditch all the stuff that I was slathering on it, has made all the difference. So this has been the top 6 ways I sabotaged my own hair growth for years. What I want you to take away from this is this. I am not special, and I don't have some magical ability to grow long hair. Quite the opposite. I struggled with my hair and firmly believed it wouldn't grow for many, many, many years of my life, until ultimately I changed some of my foundational beliefs and practices, and suddenly, wham, my hair was growing longer and thicker than it had ever grown before. Don't get me wrong, it's still taken time, patience, and lots of trial and error, but the main thing is, it grows. If you'd like to learn more about how I transform my hair, I would encourage you to check out this video here. And if you have watched my last 2 videos and are wondering, okay, I get the problems with my hair care, but what next? You are in the right place. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, definitely do so. You'll not want to miss my next couple videos where we'll be offering some of the solutions to the rampant problems in most people's hair care routines that we've been discussing in this video and my last one. And again, if you want to check out my best-selling herbal hair growth oil that has been helping tons of people, the link is in the top line of the description. Thanks for spending time with me today, and I'll see you on the next video.